after 12 or 13 quarters of seeing declining volumes, some stability seems to have returned as far as cigarettes are concerned. What is the outlook now for the cigarette business, specifically also in the near term, given the impact of the demonetization?
Okay, let me break it into two. I will talk about the industry per se and demonetization because it's a specific event separately. So in the last few years, you know that taxes on cigarettes have more than doubled. And it is not just that taxes in cigarettes have doubled. I think the equally important issue is that the gap between cigarettes and the other forms of tobacco consumption has actually expanded. So any industry that is subject to such a severe increase in taxation, and that too is somewhat discriminatory, will succumb to those pressures, and that's what we have seen over time. You know, illegal cigarettes have been growing. In fact, the recent FICCI report says that seizures this year are up 78%. And then we've had this new, pictorial warnings, which I think are...
What is the clarity on the pictorial warnings? Because there's been this curious back and forth between the government, in Parliament, outside Parliament. Where do things now stand as far as the pictorial warnings are concerned?
Well, the notification stands, so all the manufacturers have implemented it. And but also there is this case that is currently underway at the Karnataka High Court as directed by the Honorable Supreme Court. So on one hand there is the case, and on the other hand we have complied with the regulation. And the impact of that is that this is also kind of putting pressure on the legal industry. You know, a recent survey was done by one of the research agencies, and they found a lot of people preferring to opt for smuggled cigarettes or illicit cigarettes because they did not have the pictorial warnings. So on one hand we have the stress on account of higher taxes. On the other hand, we will have a pressure because of the unreasonable pictorial warnings. And you see, even in the US, the courts have stuck down these pictorial warnings. And in countries like US also, the warning is only as a text message on the side panel. And what we are seeing in the last 4 years, we've seen that illegal industry has grown 23%. And while illegal has grown 23%, total tobacco consumption in India has gone up by 18%. And at the same period, legal cigarette industry has declined in double digits. So I think no objective, or the objective of tobacco control or the health objective, I think is really not being achieved, and therefore it would be good if this sector is really studied in detail.
So the next big trigger then is the GST. Now we don't know whether the negotiations will, which have been stalled and the bill won't come up in the winter session, will be taken up in the budget session or not. But there is confusion on the manner in which the cess will be levied. The fact is that it's going to be 28% plus a cess. Our understanding from the government is that it is not going to be a significantly higher burden than what the current tax incidence is. I know that industry has been making representations to the government. What is the situation as far as the cess and the imposition of it is concerned?
So tobacco is going to be the only segment that after post in the GST scenario will also have excise. So is going to have GST, is going to have cess, and is going to have excise. And what we hear from the Honorable Finance Minister as he has been articulated with the media, that the total incidence will be revenue neutral.
Right.
So
what is your total tax incidence currently?
So for example, VAT is 24%. So a GST rate of 28% means that there is 4% additional tax which has to be offset between the sum total of the cess and excise per se.
Sure.
And cess is supposed to be for a period of 5 years, maximum 5 years for compensation. And over a period of time, there would be calibration between the proportion of cess and excise. So I think it's the right thing to do would be to retain the structure that exists for excise, which is specific length-based. It gives
Are you
fungibility.
concerned that there is a thinking of ad valorem at this point in time, or do you believe that you've been adequately able to explain to the government that specific works best?
Well, we have been saying that specific works well, and it is demonstrated by data in the past. Since 1987, when the specific system came to place, while the cigarette volumes have been flattish, excise collections have actually grown 18 times. And in the pre-87 era, where it was entirely on, the ad valorem basis, there was a lot of litigation. There was a lot of leakage of under-invoicing.
Sure.
There were attempts at, look-alike pack,
Right.
something at a lower price and something at a higher price, right? And the buoyancy was not there. And today, when the tax rates are substantially higher, I suspect the leakage could be even higher. In fact, even the working document of IMF on value-added tax says that a high rate of ad valorem tax is prone to leakages.
So how are you preparing yourself for a post-GST world? Whether it's the 1st of April or it's September, we don't know at this point in time. But how are you preparing yourself for a post-GST world?
Well, we are working with the assumption that it will be revenue neutral, and given the success and the benefits that have accrued from a specific structure over time, we are assuming that it's going to be a specific structure. But we are concerned if it were not to be a specific on cess. I think it's going to create a lot of leakages as far as the industry is concerned. And with these assumptions is what we are moving ahead. And as more and more clarity will emerge as far as regulations are concerned, I think there's a task on hand to deal with the internal processes, and not only internal, but we have to also work with our partners.
At this point, any possibility, given the environment, of being able to raise prices? Is that an option that you're looking at all today?
Well, these are issues that get dealt with time to time, and the trigger is always changes in the tax rates, whether on the center or the state. And sometimes it's immediately after that, sometimes because of...
So will you wait then for the GST rollout before you take any price action?
I can't really predict that.
Sure.
I can only say that,
But there's nothing in the offing immediately.
It all depends on factors that are there at that point of time. And, sometimes you react immediately, sometimes you decide to react a little later. But at the end of the day, I think the principle is that the businesses cannot be sustained if we are not able to change our prices, because it's kind of
So broadly, what then is the outlook as far as both margins for the cigarette business as well as the volume outlook is concerned?
Well, I can't really give you a specific guidance, because it's not a... But I think that it all depends on how the taxation structure evolves. That is the biggest determinant. If the taxes are reasonable and the structure were not to change, I think the growth that the illicit industry is experiencing would certainly come down. The legal industry would be able to also counter that. So it would certainly be better for the industry than what it has been in the last 4 years. But again, if the taxes go up at a much higher rate, we will have pressures. That's the reality.
Speaking of pressures, I asked you about the impact of demonetization. What has been the impact both on the cigarette side as well as the FMCG side? Because most other players that we speak to are speaking of perhaps temporary, but they are speaking of a demand setback at this point.
Well, I think there's no doubt that this is a bold and unprecedented step to deal with the menace of black money. And we have been highlighting for quite some time the growing illicit cigarettes. And this itself is a big generator of black money, which also funds antisocial activities. As far as the impact on various categories is concerned, I think it varies across categories. I think consumer staples are able to have recovered much faster. The discretionary item continue to be under pressure. I can't really predict by when the pressure would go off. I think there are various scenarios being articulated by experts. But I think what we have said to ourselves is, given this context, we have to see what is the best we can do. So we have been working very closely with trade partners to see how we can mitigate the difficulties being faced by them and our consumers.
How are you taking care of working capital and so on and so forth, specifically as far as partners perhaps are concerned?
Yeah, we are looking at helping them with, selectively some credit. We are looking at optimizing our service pack. We are also, in certain cases, for example, in the East, West Bengal and Northeast in particular, this is a time where students need to buy their notebooks for the session. And because there is an issue of liquidity, so we have also reached out to schools along with our partners that if they so wish, we can come to the schools and let them buy notebooks with the digital transactions. So many schools have actually, kind of envisioned interest in this. So we are doing whatever we can to help the difficulty that trade partners faced and, minimize convenience to consumers. And that's what we are really focusing on.
So, we were talking about the innovations across the FMCG business, but let me ask you about possible innovations on the cigarette side. So, there's a lot of talk about e-cigarettes and so on and so forth. Is that something that ITC could consider now or in the future?
We are already in the market with e-cigarettes. We have a brand called Eon. So, we are already there. It's a nascent category in India. But we are, developing that. Yes, we are providing. We are continuing to invest behind it to, create different options and better products over time, and also to make them available to consumers. So definitely, these are areas that we are looking at. A lot of health experts globally have said that these are relatively safer. So we would certainly like to, we'll certainly provide these options to our consumers.
Also, in terms of regulatory action, there is a proposal that's been mooted by the Cabinet, by the Commerce Ministry, which is yet to get the Cabinet's approval to disallow any form of foreign direct investment across the cigarette, not just manufacturing, but licensing and trademarks, etc. That probably is good news for you because it doesn't aid your competitors who are looking to, at this point in time, bring FDI in.
Yeah, we are not impacted by this for sure. And also, there are a fair amount of reports internationally where, because, foreign brands are made in 100 different countries. And there are reports that where in certain countries, if a demand is created, depending on tax rates and other regulatory issues like pictorial warning, the demand gets filled by by the the illegal channel itself. And the intent has been, I think, of the government always to restrict FDI. There's already a policy on it. So I think in line with that, there is some further regulations are coming in. We have, I mean, the information we have is really from press reports, so we have no idea on what the additional restrictions are going to be.